Hi there, wonderful awakening beings and spiritual souls. Jo Rose of JoRose.com, numerologist and energy forecaster. In this video, I'm talking about February the 14th and Valentine's Day. Take a note of my heart because I will be coming back to this shortly. Now, prior to putting this video together, I decided to do some research. I'm of the belief that we don't know what we don't know. And on top of that, I'm tired of following through practices, systems, traditions that I know very little about. And so my research began. Years ago, stories were told and handed down through generations. Myth or factual makes no difference, but they have still both affected us in today's world. My research led to a festival called Lupercalia. Now, Lupercalia really interested me, and as I delved deep, it was fascinating what I discovered. Lupercalia is a festival, or was a festival celebrated around 13th to 15th of February. And to understand this, it comes from a Roman myth of the twin boys, Romulus and Remus. Now, they were born to the daughter of the king that was overturned by his naughty brother. And he demanded they be killed. The twins were taken to the river, and the river god made sure the twins survived. They were raised by a she-wolf, and a she-wolf is Luper. She took them to a cave, and this is where the Lupercalia starts from. Over time of this story, this tale, this myth, there were two sets of priests that would celebrate Romulus and Remus. And what happened was, in the ritual, they would slaughter 3 goats and a dog. And from the goat, after the slaughter, while it was dripped in blood, they would cut the hide into thongs. Partly they wore it to cover themselves because they were naked outside that, so the story goes, and to make these whips. They would then run around town and whip young ladies, women. Now, women that wanted to be made fertile would be out there wanting to be whipped, but if you were whipped, you tended to be thought that you were going to be fertile. Now, as time went on, this festival continued, myth or factual, who knows. But what happened was, around this time, Valentine's Day, names were put into a hat, boys and girls, and they would go to the festival and be connected, joined for the festival. Sometimes it lasted the festival, sometimes to the following festival, and sometimes throughout their life. They became married and had babies. The women were fertile. And this was celebrated for many, many years. Now, if we go back to Romulus and Remus, where the river was is where Rome is later built. And when Christianity came along and they wanted to stop those celebrating the many, many gods, there was a ban and only one god could be celebrated. Now, pagan didn't exist, but it is a name given to those that celebrated the many gods after only one god could be celebrated. And you can look up pagan and understand more about this, as you can Lupercalia. Now, it was a moment of, you could say, love and fertility. But the Romans didn't want to follow through any of these ideas. So much later, around 496 AD, there was a new way of celebrating this day. And this was taking Saint Valentine, the martyr, to use this. Now, Saint Valentine the martyr was around a good 200 and something years prior to this point. But that story goes that in his time, the emperor banned marriage, believing men would be better soldiers. So this priest would secretly marry the men. Now, again, this could be a story or not, we don't know, because according to other stories, men, after they'd been away and fought, come back and were given many women to enjoy themselves with. But this particular priest, St. Valentine, or this saint, he was in prison and waiting to be executed. And while he was there, he cured the jailer's daughter of blindness. And on the day of his execution, he sent her a note and he signed it, "Your Valentine." And this is another story or myth of where it comes from. As we move forward through the time and we look at Chaucer, he was the first person really to write about this. And he wrote the words, "For this was on St. Valentine's Day, when early bird cometh to choose his mate." Again, we're back to fertility. Now, what we need to understand was there's two calendars playing out here, the Gregorian calendar, and then we have the Julian calendar. Now, we know that we have a leap year every 4 years, but many years ago, we had different months and different times. And so, if we look at Chaucer's point or understand the fertility, this would have been roughly when the birds were around the 23rd of February. Now, it's interesting that 23 and 14, when you reduce them down, they both come to a 5. So we still got the same energy for my tale here. But those calendars would have brought things around at a different time. In 1797, a book of Valentine verses was created for men to copy and send to their Valentine. Now, this began to pick up momentum, and by the 19th century, cards were now being made. In, when was it? 1835, there were about 60,000 cards sent. But in 1940, the penny black came along and 400,000 cards were sent. Now, because they weren't sent by delivery person, they were sent by the postal system. This is how anonymous Valentine's cards came about. You see how this is going? So sometimes if you think back in the past, I remember as I was growing up, the Valentine card was often sent from a secret admirer. Now, is it your belief the secret admirer, or is it the one true love? This is where I want to go when we look at the numerology. Now, February is a 2-month. 2 is the energy of love and romance and relationships. It's the time when we think about hearts and flowers and chocolates. Do you remember I said we'll come back to the heart? Now, from Lupercalia, the women were whipped on their bottoms. Now, is the heart the bottom? Who knows? Because a real heart isn't this shape, but somehow over time it's been drawn to be associated with this. And that is because the heart is where the emotions come from, or said to believe where the emotions come from. I mean, the heart, if we look at the technical term, is pumping blood up and down throughout our body, keeping us alive. But they also say it's where the emotions lie. So the two energies about love and harmony and support and collaboration. When we see that Valentine's Day comes on the 14th, and I add the 1 and 4 together, 5, add it to the 2, and now this is why I ask you, fact or fiction, logic or creativity. We're at the 7, and the 7 needs you to understand what your intuition is guiding you. You can back it up with logic, but why do you celebrate Valentine's Day? Go inside, connect to source and find out what it means to you. I'm going to break it down now. So 14/5, which is what we'd see as the day of Valentine's Day, is actually a karmic debt number. So it's about a repay or rebalance energy. When we see the 1, it's about independence. The 4, committed. And yet the 5 is not committed. Is that where the anonymous and the affairs and the let's step outside our comfort zone comes from? But we can look at those three numbers again. 1 being you, 4 being the team, and 5 being freedom. You know, I say it's all about love and loving the self. It's your life, L-Y-F-E. Love yourself first every day. And I then say, love us. It's so important to understand, because then you wouldn't be looking externally for what you're lusting after, or the fertility, or the excitement that Valentine's Day brings. The 14-5 is suggesting that you commit without becoming rigid. Be flexible, but remain true to the self whilst being part of a team. Understand the 5 energy. Freedom or escapism? Interesting. I also took a look at the word Valentine, and here we have the breakdown. What was interesting was that the personality of this number, that's how it shows up, the external part, was the 1, the masculine energy. The heart's desire number, the feminine energy. The relationship. So we've got the individual and the relationship. And then we have, when we add them all together, we get this 3 energy. The expression is a 3 energy. And that's all about expressing yourself. We've got 1, 2, 3 here. The Trinity, mother, father, child. Look at it whatever way you want to look at it. But what I believe is, from the word Valentine, we've got the feminine and the masculine coming together to express themselves. And so I come back to you, team, and freedom. Take this day, while it's filled with chocolate and flowers for some, it's filled with heartache for others. If you're not in a relationship, self-partnership is where it all begins. So take some time out to love yourself today, to do something to make you feel celebrated and validated, and express yourself doing things that you love. I love the fact that Valentine's Day is a day for romance and connection, for letting down your guard and being who you truly are. But will you now look at this heart as something a little different? I'll leave that up to you. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. I've got some great videos lined up that I really want to share. I've recently completed the personal year videos, so do go and check them out in the link below. Also your life path number. And outside this, have you ever wondered how compatible you are to your partner? Yes, I can take your number and their number and give you some ideas or pointers of how to understand one another better. It leaves me now to just wish you all a very happy Valentine's Day. And remember, love starts with yourself. Love yourself first every day, and then love us. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.